Okay, on this particular reel, we're going to take it apart and clean the bearings. We're going to actually press the bearings out of the reel, and then we're going to then break the bearings down. Okay, when you go to press bearings out, this is called an arbor press. This is the best piece of equipment you can have to pushing bearings out. Backyard mechanics, they typically, you can get away with blocking the spool and hitting it with a hammer, but it's almost imminent that you end up damaging bearings. This arbor press is $100. It's well spent. What I've done is I've made a plug that will fit down inside the journal. I've machined it so that way it pushes on the outer bearing races. Pushing on the outer bearing races is where the bearings are retained. So by pushing on those races, on the outer races, you are less likely to damage the bearings. So we're going to take these blocks, and just for now I'm just going to leave them sitting on there like so. Put the spool on the wood blocks, and then you put the spacer inside there. Now it doesn't need to be aluminum. You can get away with
socket.
You can get away with using a socket. You might be able to get away with using a piece of dowelwood, like oak, maybe even copper, piece of copper tubing even. So bring the arbor press down and just press. Now this particular tool I've made here, it only presses the bearings out so far. I'm going to end up having to space it, but at this point obviously I'm pushing the bearing up against the wood, so I'm going to spread the wood blocks apart. And then the inner bearing fell out along with the spacer. Then you still have one bearing left in there. And then repeat the step. And as you can see, I'm starting to get close to the face of the spool. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go ahead and put another spacer on top of that. That is how you press out the bearings. What we're going to go over here is in-depth bearing cleaning, and what that means is we're going to remove the shields from the bearings so that way we can really flush out the bearings. And the way you do that is I've taken a piece of dowel rod and I've pressed a sewing needle into the end of it. This tool will allow you to use the tip of the sewing needle to get down inside the flanges to pop the clip. And what you do is look closely at the bearing and you'll see that there's a gap. There's a clip here with a gap, and you take the needle, push it into one side, and pry on it and lift up, and as you do that you can see that the clip comes out. Now once you've done that, you want to hold this clip. There's spring tension, they will fly and you'll lose them. And then you can reach over the other side and push the bearing spacer out. On that particular bearing I already had the shield out, so we'll go back through it again. Got the clip out, and then on this particular one as well I already had the shield out. So I'm going to put the shield in this one so that way it's as if you've just taken the spacer out. You'll take the needle and put it between the inner race and the shield. And when once you do that, you got to take a little bit of time to get the shield out, but it pops out. And you do not have to bend the shield to get it out. If you're bending the shield, you're horsing the shield. And then of course that shield would still be in there. Then you pull the clip out and just push through the bearing cages. At this point, what you do is, if you have something that you can stick the bearing on, so that way you can hold the end of it and not lose the bearing, it's the best method of cleaning the bearing. You can pinch the bearing between your thumb and index finger like that, so that way you can clean it that way as well. Problem I found doing it this way is that you can drop them. So what I do is I use brake parts cleaner, and I just spray it in the bearings, and you can see that the bearing starts to move and it's spinning, and you see it's still spinning. And then I take and repeat the process on the other side. When you're doing this, your hands should be completely clean. Don't do it in a very dusty area, otherwise you can still reintroduce dust or foreign particles into the bearings. And then that's pretty much all you need to do to clean a bearing out. As you can see, it's spinning very well, and that's what a properly cleaned bearing should do. It should spin for 5 to 10 seconds afterward. Okay, now that the bearings are clean, we're going to go ahead and reassemble the shields. The shields, you want to give them a quick wipe down as well. If you look at the shield, there's a part that's recessed. The part that's recessed actually goes to the inside of the bearing, and that way there's room for grease and so forth to move around if it were a greased bearing. And then the clip goes in the same way it came out. You start at one end. Make sure it's in there by chasing it all around with the needle. Make sure it's pushed in the groove. And then you repeat this step for the other side. This is my particular reel. I don't run inner shields. It's just a trial thing I'm doing right now. Your reel would have shields on the inside.
So you'll be doing this twice per bearing?
Yeah, you do this twice per bearing. As you see, I push that clip back in there. Well, before you put the second cover back on, it's an opportune time to lubricate the bearings. I use 3-in-1 oil or sewing machine oil. There is discussion as to whether or not that's good for low temperature application. So whatever lubrication you prefer to use it would be an opportune time to get it in there.
Sewing machine oil would be better
the sewing machine oil would be better. It's just that 3-in-1, I love that oil, and so there's always a bottle around for doing various things around the shop. So we went ahead and assembled the bearings, put them back in the reel, put the retaining clips back in. In closing, one other thing I'd like to mention is that if you don't want to press the bearings out, you don't have to. You can achieve the same thing by just taking the clips out on either side of the bearings, and then taking the bearing shield clips out and then cleaning it that way. It'll just take a little bit more time to flush them out. So through some time and some patience, you can achieve the same thing without pressing the bearings out.
And that's it?
Yep, that's
excellent.
it.
Thank you, Adam.
No problem.